Hello again, whiskey friends. Thank you for joining me here on the porch. I am quite excited about today's video. We are going to go over my top 10 whiskeys of the year thus far for 2023. So that's a question that I get very often, just about each month. Oh, what's in the top 10? Oh, what's at your top 5 right now? Well, let's go over that. So I thought, this being July, halfway through the year, why not do a check-in? Now, everything that we're going to go over today utilizes the scoring system that we use here on the channel. If you are curious about the scoring system, there was a video released last week that did explain some of the nuances of our scoring system if you're curious. But what you really want to hear about is what are these 10 amazing whiskeys that I've come across so far this year. So stick around. Thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Oh man, it's even better than I remember. You know, whenever we're doing these type of videos, I always like to have a pour while we're hanging out. And today, in the fancy little golden whiskey nose Glen here, thank you, Marty, I've got the number 1 bottle that we're going to go on the list. Oh man, that was a really good sip to start out on, let me tell you. So before we get started with the official top 10, I did want to call out just some honorable mentions because there are a whole bunch of whiskeys that just barely missed out on the top 10. And these are whiskeys that I were wondering, oh, will they make that top 10? Will they make it? Well, if they didn't make it halfway to the year, they're definitely not making it the full way to the year. But all the whiskeys I'm about to talk about scored an 82 out of 100 in our scoring system, which makes them great pours. Just not good enough for this, the special tier here, the top 10. So some of these honorable mentions include Lucky 7 Proprietor. So that was a 15-year Lucky 7 that I got my hands on at the beginning of the year. It's a really good pour. I just didn't think it had the flavors that I was getting out of some of my 14-year single barrels last year, and thus it lost a lot of points on the value as well for being $200. The other one that I'm really surprised just barely missed the top 10 is the Jack Daniel's 12-year. I love that pour, but where it lost some points was just in its lack of complexity. It is a very, very delicious 12-year, man, banana Fosters for day kind of a pour, but not enough to score in the top 10. Another one that I actually think I graded too low, honestly, I think it should have been in the top 10, is this Journeyman's single barrel that I got of the Corseps Bourbons and Whiskey, which is a 100% wheat whiskey coming out of Michigan. Oh my gosh, is that pour so delightful. I regret not having it in the top 10, but I gave it an 82 and the scores stand where they stand. Another one you may not be familiar with, it is more of a local label here in Cincinnati, around Northern Kentucky. But if you're in the area, keep this in mind, Bad Tom Smith. So these are wheated bourbons coming out of Indiana that were aged 6-7 years. If you've seen the wheated Boone counties that go crazy on secondary, it is the exact same stuff. It's just a different label. The difference is, rather than paying up $150, $200 maybe on secondary for those Boone County wheated bourbons, this you can get for 60, 70, 80, something in that range. And there are picks in Northern Kentucky too. And that's the one in particular that scored an 82, was a very, very delightful pick. So if you see Bad Tom Smith, keep that in mind, wheated bourbon coming out of Indiana. And the last one is another group pick. Oh my gosh, was it delightful. It was a rye from Nashville Barrel Company for a very special group here in Columbus, Ohio. But they did such a good job picking this particular barrel. Man, that was a good rye. 82 out of 100, just not enough for the top 10. So with that out of the way, hey, let's get into the top 10. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me this far. So the first one I have here, it scored an 83 out of 100 in our scoring system. And it is one of the bigger surprises of the year, honestly. It might not be a label that you're familiar with. Let's see if I can get that zoomed. Take over. Come on. There it is. So this is called Silver Grove Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and it is coming from New Riff. So this is a special release from New Riff. I really, really love this one. I was a huge fan of New Riff's malted rye to begin with. And what this is a bourbon, 65% corn, but then 30% of that malted rye that I adore. And it elevated this thing, especially just for 4 years old. Oh, man, barrel proof goodness right there. So if you are in the Northern Kentucky area, I think you got to get these from the distillery only. There's a tip for you. That was number 10. Number 9 scored an 83 as well. This one's a bit controversial, honestly. When I sat down and actually scored this thing, it did score a lot higher than my initial impression. Darrell was telling me I was crazy the entire time. He just thought it was always great. And now here we are with it being number 9. Hey, age statement or no age statement? We got the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B523. So this is the controversial one that went down to 11 and a half years. But I tell you what, people were describing this thing as like hot and all these weird flavors. I get nothing like that. This thing is a flavor bomb. Now, it took me a little bit here past the neck to like come around on this one, because I remember even being on a live stream off of my initial pour where I was like, this is complete crap. What did they do? I don't know if that was just the biasy in my head trying to get over the death of the 12-year age statement. But man, every time I came back to it, it was getting better. And then obviously when I finally sat down to review it, got an 83 out of 100. That's a great pour. So let's go to number 8. Now, number 8, I actually don't have anymore, but I'm just going to talk about these in general. Big, huge shout out to Backbone Bourbon. These are amazing. So there are a whole bunch of Backbone single barrel picks that are somewhere between 7, 8, even 9 years. I mean, 7 to 8 years, I think, is probably what I'm seeing on average. The one that I have in my hand right now is the Slippin' Jimmy. This actually came out in December of 2022, so it doesn't count for this list. But the bottle that I reviewed that scored an 83 out of 100 actually came from Cork and Bottle at the CVG airport. I bought it for a trip down to Florida and finished the thing in Florida as well. So that was a quick 3 days with that amazing single barrel. But the point being, I have come across 3, 4, maybe 5 single barrels now of Backbone the last 6 to 7, 8 months. They've been unbelievable MGP. I know Nashville Barrel Company tends to get a lot of hype for their MGP stuff. Don't sleep on Backbone. It is so good. I've got so much glass on the table. It is like dangerous here. So much expensive glass now that I think about that too. All right, let's go to number 7. Number 7, hey, we've got another one here. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So this one is the A123. Man, I'll get this camera to work at some point here. But this is the A123 here. Oh, I did it. Yeah. I do like this one, but it scored the same as the B. I can't believe that. I thought this one would be above it. I like them both equally. They're both amazing pours. We are big fans of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof here on the channel. And one thing that we are working on, just a little preview, is we are grading every batch that we have our hands on and seeing if Elijah Craig has been getting better or worse over time. And if you know anything about Darrell and Kelsey's collection, they got a lot of the pirate bottles too. Ooh, so we're going to be grading all of them that we can. Let's go to number 6. All right, finally, we're out of the 83s. This one steps up to an 85 out of 100. And this is probably one of my most surprising pours of the year. Came out of nowhere, and it just is ridiculous on paper. It is the Magi Blended Rye Whiskey. This is coming out of Cat's Eye. And for $105, you are getting a 21-year Canadian whiskey mixed with a 6-year MGP rye. Both of those are rye. The Canadian's rye, too. And then it's finished in port and sherry barrels. Oh, my gosh. This thing is so good. I already have a backup because I have been sharing this thing with everybody I can, showing them how good this thing is. Oh, so good. If you're interested in this one, I know there's a website. I believe it's a buy some whiskey, go to thewhiskeychannel.com. Find their website, how they're getting their whiskey distributed. You can get it there. It is worth it. It is so worth it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so good. All right. Let's go to number 5. Scores are going up. Now we're at an 87 out of 100. This one was a big surprise for me. Now, as we go through these, just to make sure I'm being clear, I am clarifying my top 10 is anything I bought and entered my house and got opened in 2023. So some of these batches maybe got released in Q4 of 2022. I just got my hands on them in Q1 of 2023. Whatever. That's my whiskey experience for 2023. We've got the Old Carter American, and this is batch 9 specifically. I also had batch 10. Batch 10 did not score as well. So there is a difference between these. This one is a light whiskey, most likely, and it is a delicious cinnamon bomb off memory. Oh, man, did I love this pour. And it's so rich and it's so viscous. That mouthfeel, I think, was 10 out of 10, too. Like, it's an experienced whiskey right there. Number 4, as we start winding down here, I've been doing these top 10 lists since 2020 myself, posting them on the socials. Now I get to do it more officially here. But there hasn't been a year yet where there wasn't a Kelvin collaboration in my top 5. And the trend continues as long as this 88 can hold on. But we've got a 4-gate. This is Kelvin Collaboration 5. Oh, man, this is some amazing stuff. So it's back to being a Kentucky straight bourbon, and this one was finished in sherry and dark rum casks. Oh, do I love, love, love this pour. I'm such a sucker anyway for the Kelvin series, but they've yet to disappoint me yet, man. Number 5, another hitter. All right, number 3 on the list. This scored an 88 as well, but I managed to get my hands on one of the Hardin's Creek. So this is specifically Jacob's Well. It is a little over 15 years at 108 proof. Some of the best Jim Beam I have had. This thing is just so, so good. I haven't had any of the newer Hardin Creeks that came out in 2023 yet. So we'll see if those are even better. Hopefully I can get my hands on one. All right. And then number 2 here, we're going to keep the Jim Beam train alive because we are still going with a Knob Creek single barrel. So this is a Knob Creek single barrel called Beam Tack. This is a single barrel coming out of California that Big Vic turned me on to. And man, is this a good pick. This is so, so good. I have been thoroughly impressed with this one, and it scored a 90 out of 100 for a Knob Creek single barrel. You've seen all the things that I just highlighted here. All these Old Carters and 4-gates and Hardin's Creek. Knob Creek single barrel beats them all. This was a 90 out of 100 for me. Such good whiskey. And then our last one. So this is what I am drinking in the Glen. If you're still with me throughout all this, thank you for sticking around. Cheers, everybody. We have another Old Carter. So 2 Old Carters are in the top 5 so far. This one is the Old Carter Rye, and this is batch 10 in particular. Quite frankly, this is one of the best ryes I've ever had. I gave it a 92 out of 100. I can't think of a rye that I would grade above this off memory. This is just an amazing, amazing rye. So once again, if you do have a chance for an Old Carter, I know these are expensive, but man, the rye batch 10, the American batch 9, great, great, great whiskey. So that takes us through then the top 10 thus far this year. Now, going into the scoring system, though, as we can see, a minimum right now is an 83 out of 100. I do suspect as we go through the second half of the year, the standards are just going to get higher. So it's going to be interesting to see if that Kelvin, even at an 88, can hang on to the top 10 list by the time the end of the year comes. So let us know in the comments, what are your top 10 bottles thus far this year? Even if you won't want to go to top 10, hey, give us your top 5. Give us your number 1. I'd love to hear what you're picking. And if you've had any of these, do you agree about their top 10 status and their score? Well, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. We'll catch you on a next Tuesday discussion. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you